with all of my heart. It was started off as a bit of a whimsical country and western song in a way. I say that because once upon a time when we were friends, I gave you my heart, the story ends.
First things first, I have this long-held belief, that Sheffield is the greatest musical city in the UK. And I can mathematically quantify this because if you've got the amount of life-changing bands and then you've got the population, you can derive a per capita number, can't you?
Per capita.
And the per capita number of Sheffield is higher than any other city in the UK. And I've had arguments on Twitter with people.
You see, I'm imagining guys in Liverpool, Leeds, Manchester shaking their heads.
Of course they'll shake their heads.
But Manchester, Leeds, Liverpool, they're big conurbations.
5 times. Yeah.
Built on 7 hills is quite a small city.
See, Greater Manchester, 2.9 million people, right? Sheffield, 500,000.
I'll tell you why that is, I think. The Lady Bower, I used to think the Lady Bower Reservoir, I used to think they used to put something in the water.
Acid in the water.
The late 70s, early 80s, I lived in Sheffield and I used to kind of walk down West Street and go for a drink in the Raven or the Beehive. And you could hear bands, you could hear bands rehearsing, like, Artery and I'm So Hollow and Salon Graph, even Def Leppard.
Yeah.
And then you could go and see the Human League, Cabaret Voltaire, Clock DVA.
Yes, yeah.
All in one night.
Amazing. Incredible.
It was a fantastic place to be a bohemian ex-student like I was, daydreaming about rock and roll. Yeah.
So seriously, what do you think was something in the water?
And there was Joe Cocker as well. And,
yeah.
Tony Christie.
And then Heaven 17. And
I forget Heaven 17, yeah. Well, Martin and Glenn,
and Ian Craig Marsh. And, it was an incredible concentration of creatives and of...
It was, yeah.
Like, it's unfathomable. I like that. Is there a reason?
I tell you, there was a lot of cheap rehearsal rooms in the sense that there was all the little mesters, they call them in Sheffield, steel workers that had their own little workshops. And sadly, unemployment was never higher in the early 80s. So a lot of places had shut down. So I remember clearing out lathe cuttings and swarf cuttings in rooms so that Clock DVA could rehearse in them. You know what I mean? So there was a lot of kind of artist studios available. Do you know what I mean? I guess that's part of it. You could make a racket. In fact, I lived on Barber Crescent with John Glover, who was Disco John. He was the DJ in the local vicinity. He had like a pink quiff and he would DJ at Penny's. Me and John had this house and it was derelict next door. So when ABC needed to find somewhere to rehearse, we just kicked through. And it was a bit like the Beatles movie where you could rehearse in the derelict house next door. So I think that might have had something to do with it. There was a lot of rehearsal space. Yeah.
And were you was there a big awareness? Were you sort of helping each other out? Like, was there a kind of a cross-fertilization between all these amazing bands and people?
I think there was. I met Martin Ware. What I did, I had a fanzine called Modern Drugs. I used to wander around and interview bands. And I was daydreaming about being in a band for a long time. My brother Jamie he was in a band and I was kind of still pondering my future. I was itching to get in a band. And so I remember meeting Martin Ware and Richard Kirk from Cabaret Voltaire. Yeah, they were really encouraging and stuff, yeah. And I eventually met Mark White, Steve Singleton from a band called Vice Versa, and they let me join their band, yeah.
So talk me through
So I guess so, yeah, there was a community, yeah. Until everybody was chasing a record deal. And once they had their record deals, you realised only one act can get to number one. So it gets very competitive at that point in time,
So talk me through the formation of ABC, the early days.
I went to 44 Bowood Road to interview Stephen Singleton and Mark White about their band Vice Versa. And they said to me, we're playing in Middlesbrough Rock Garden tomorrow. Do you want to come with us? We're going to go on the train with our synthesizers. We're opening up for Cowboys International at the Rock Garden. And we're a trio and the other guy left last week. So they must have seen something in me that they could see I wanted to be in a band. So I went with them and we played a show. It was all backing tracks and synths. Quickly learnt some parts. And the audience response was terrible. They were just chucking stuff, but I felt fantastic. I knew that was the life for me at that point. And shortly afterwards, we were listening to so much kind of James Brown and Chic and Sister Sledge, Earth, Wind and Fire, a lot of disco tunes. I'm also loving Joy Division and The Cure, Magazine, Public Image, all those other bands, very creative English bands. So we wanted to make a band that sort of fuse those two worlds together. We wanted people to dance to our music.
Yeah.
which was kind of a novel idea back in sort of 1981.
And then how did those, I'm going to use the word iconic, which is overused and ruined, but iconic songs, when did they start to crystallize?
We played the art college, so we had to we got a bass player and a drummer. Dave Robinson and Mark Lickley joined, and we transformed the band. So we scrapped everything, the whole Vice Versa set, and we had to come up with some songs quick. And out of that songwriting came Poison Arrow was there, Look of Love, song called Surrender, Do As I Say, and then we'd vamp it out where I'd introduce the band. I kind of turned that into a 15-minute extravaganza in the spirit of James Brown. So we had a set, we were building a set, and then over the next, I guess, 6 months, we'd signed a record deal, and we were kind of writing songs all the time. Yeah.
So you got
on Barbara Crescent.
You signed quick.
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking back now. We played about 5 or 6 shows, and then there was definite interest in what we were doing.
Yeah.
And then we there was. Guys would come up from London to Sheffield. I remember Dave Bettridge came from Sony, CBS. Muff Winwood, who we idolised because he produced Sparks. His brother was Stevie Winwood. All these guys would show up and say, we'd heard, they'd come and check us out and listen to us ranting about how we were going to be the future of rock and roll. And as everybody knows, it's all about wish fulfillment music, isn't it? It's always about saying you're going to do something. So the songs were kind of all conceived, over the first year of the bands. Yeah, we demoed them, and then we met up with Trevor Horn, and after we'd had a hit with Tears Not Enough, we met with Trevor Horn and started recording the Lexicon of Love.
Wow. Just thinking about it, those songs, you had so much more than your fair share of brilliance there, because you've got at least three of the best songs ever written on this album, right? So, I mean, if I'm trying to be dispassionate about this, but there really are 3 of the greatest songs ever written on one album, and most bands would be happy with one. Do you subscribe to that Keith Richards theory that the idea, the Greek idea of the muse, that these ideas are floating around, and you've got to have your antenna up, and if you don't get it, then Heaven 17 are going to get it.
I don't know if Heaven 17 are going to get it. I don't know if Keith's got his antennas up, right, and it doesn't mean Dave D, Dozy Beaky, Mick and Titch are going to get it. But songs are out there in the ether. They're like hummingbirds. You've got to kind of, they come to you. The best ideas just come to you. They're public property, I guess, like you say, out there in the cosmos, and they kind of come to you, and you've got to grab them while you can.
Well, yeah, you had a big net, didn't you?
So, yeah, I always remember Bruce Springsteen said he'd write 4 songs and then pick one of them. You know what I mean? Because you're writing the same song over and over again. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
In a way. But we definitely had, The Look of Love was there, Poison Arrow. Valentine's Day, we kind of morphed from a song called Surrender, the backing track, I guess. All of My Heart was kind of set off. It started off as a country and western song. That was kind of conceived pretty much in the studio, written quickly in the studio. There was a few things written in the studio. But you never really know. When you're young and naive and inexperienced and stupid, it's a fantastic quality. You have to you just kind of think everything you've written's fantastic. As you make a few albums, you kind of get a bit more wizened and sort of self-analytical, and it's not so good for your inspiration. You've got to strike quick. But those songs, we used to go up we met a guy called Mark Dean who wanted to sign us, and he financed us to go into probably an 8-track or 16-track studio in the Pennines. So we kind of did some demos and stuff. Yeah.
And how did Trevor?
We had no real idea what we were doing.
Well,
we were
you say
about it.
You say that.
Yeah.
So how did Trevor Horn come into the picture, and how did you feel about that?
Tears Not Enough was released with Alphabet City on the B-side, with the sleeve notes on the sleeve. It was our opening salvo. It was our first shot. First single, and it went to number 19 on the charts, and we were on top of the pops, and we were very pleased. It transformed our lives. Walking down West Street the next day after the top of the pops appearance was very different, but we were a bit disgruntled. We kind of thought, no, it'd be nice to get in the top 10. We were very ambitious, which is wrong, because at the time Cilla Black was in the top 10, or Cliff Richard. We were definitely breaking into the mainstream, just getting on the charts. But we wanted to work with Alex Satkin. He made the great records with Grace Jones, Pull Up to the Bumper, and Sly and Robbie. We approached him and we said, we want to sound as good as your records. How do you make them, sound so great? In retrospect, he must have thought we were crazy, because obviously he had Sly Dunbar and Robbie Shakespeare playing bass and drums on his records. They were kind of the world's best rhythm section.
Yeah.
And we were kind of a fledgling act from Sheffield, listening to a few James Brown records. So, but we did kind of develop pretty fast, yeah. And then we met. We'd heard Handheld in Black and White on the radio, and it's just such a panoramic, beautiful sounding record. A record that Trevor Horn had produced for $1. And at that point, Trevor was producing singles for other acts, just starting up, I guess.
Yeah.
So we contacted him and met him at the bottom of the Bayswater Road in a pizza place, and just sort of told him our vision of the world. How we were gonna the same vision we told everybody, that we were going to be the future of rock and roll.
And you were ahead of the curve, Martin.
So that's where we met him, and he'd obviously had a lot of success with the Buggles, and he had ask Trevor, but he had a great reputation as being able to rescue people's records. Really, he'd kind of go in like a car mechanic and put new wheels on them, and a new engine in there. With the $1 records, he did Handheld in Black and White, Videotech, and Give Me Back My Heart, this sort of trilogy. And they were kind of brilliant electronics records, almost like Kraftwerk, but with this sort of duo. The vocals are stacked up. I don't know, it's just incredible sounding record. Still is an incredible sounding record.
Yeah, well,
so that inspired us to meet him.
Yeah, and you were ahead of the curve, because he wasn't Uber producer Trevor Horn at that time. He was, the ex-bass player or whatever of Yes, and the guy that sort of had rescued Yes. But it's interesting what Trevor says about working on this record.
You know what? I didn't read Trevor's book. He's written a book. So I thought I'd let the memories stay.
I've talked to Trevor. I
saw Trevor about 2 years ago. Yeah,
me too. But I talked to him at great length, actually. But one of the things that he's on record as saying is very interesting about your record, which is that he says it's the record that he did the least on. He said it was the most fully formed record that he's ever worked on. That's a great compliment.
That's a great accolade, because sometimes, because of our success, it just kind of exploded. So people would assume and Trevor, he received a Brit Award as producer of the year, and he did get a lot of great kudos, but people did assume Trevor, the sort of auteur producer, kind of developed later after he made records with ZTT, with Frankie Goes to Hollywood, Grace Jones. I don't know. Yeah, I'm glad you said that. Yeah, in a way, that is how it was. It was a great collaboration.
Great musicianship on this record, and it was the production was maximal, wasn't it? But really punchy.
Vice Versa had been a 3-piece electronic band, so we spent days kind of overdubbing on our 2-track, 4-track machine, with monophonic synths and tracking stuff up to try and make it sound great. When it came to ABC, we wanted to kind of fuse that world with something a bit more played,
Yes.
The musicianship. David Palmer joined the band shortly before we started playing, and he plays with Rod Stewart today. He's an incredible drummer.
Yeah.
And he was really into programming. I think Trevor brought a Lindrum in, I think it was, or maybe I can't remember the exact.
Probably a Lindrum, yeah. Probably
right in its infancy.
Yeah.
And David learned overnight how to program it.
Wow.
I think it was step programming. Anyway, we're there. So, the great thing about Trevor is, he's got all the technical chops down, but he's also interested in lyrics and why you're making a record. I've worked with a lot of different people through the years. Sometimes people are like, record the vocals and I'll see you in 2 days' time, or
right.
Yeah, most people can get the bass sound, and most people can get it in tune and in time. But Trevor's definitely, his way of looking at music is definitely, there has to be a reason for it. You have to wonder why somebody would actually want to go and buy your record.
Did he push you?
In the sense that, he pushed
as
it
a
really
lyricist
hard, because, I'd say, we throw ideas around all the time that the kind of, it's hard to describe, but, I think he kind of really enjoyed our whole kind of shtick on why we were making the record, and what we were going to do. We always had this sort of fictional girl in Barnsley we were making the record to, who'd never heard of ABC, but as soon as she heard the record, she'd fall off her roller skates with a Walkman on or something.
Brilliant. That's a
Sorry,
lovely.
I'm rambling on.
That's a lovely.
So it was a very good experience making that record. Yeah.
So let's deep dive. So track one, we've got, my first thought when I reacquainted myself, because it was actually, I'll admit it's been ages since I listened to Lexicon of Love front to back, and what an absolute joy it was to delve back into it. And you start with these sweeping strings, and my first thought was, oh gosh, what a lovely filmic beginning. But then I thought, no, check that, because I remembered the cover, and I thought, no, it's theatre. This is theatre.
It's a film of a theatre show.
Right, there you go. So show me.
We were very impressed, very influenced by The Red Shoes and Powell and Pressburger and those kind of movies, where they're kind of very theatrical films, really. Black Narcissus, The Red Shoes, A Matter of Life and Death. Those kind of English films, which weren't quite Hollywood, made in the late 40s and 50s, 60s, I suppose. But they're kind of superannuated. They're kind of like, the red is really red and the blue is really blue.
Technicolor.
With the opening track, we'd recorded the songs at Psalm East, but when we came to do an orchestral session, we went to Abbey Road, and we had a little bit of extra time, and that's where Show Me comes from. We wanted the opening to be like Red Velvet Curtains opening, and Welcome to the World of ABC, and that's the purpose of the... there's not actually any orchestra strings on the rest of the track, Show Me. It drops down into... But it kind of, it's the credits are rolling. Welcome to the show. Welcome to the world of ABC.
Yeah, and then suddenly,
Show Me is
that's right, and you segue out of these strings into this really punchy bass playing and incredible production, and like it's almost a shock, a pleasant surprise.
Show Me was very influenced by Japan. We love Mick Karn, and
he's the reason I started playing bass.
Oh, really? Well, as a Karn was a fantastic bass.
Yeah, incredible. But this is very fretted rather than his woody fretless style.
Okay, yeah. No, I think there's some fretless on that song. Yeah.
Oh, is there? Oh, wow. He was playing it right on the money then. Yeah. So we come to Poison Arrow now. Now, if I say this is one of the greatest songs ever written, right? Imagine I'd said that back then, when you were doing your first interview. What would your reaction have been back then, and what's your reaction now, and is it different?
I'd have been pretty fearful of that. Yeah, it's a hard one to describe. Well, thank you very much. I'm really bad with compliments, I'm afraid.
Oh, you're one of those people that can't take a compliment.
Well, it's ridiculous. I think that's why I do it in the first. Try as hard as I possibly can in the first place. Yeah, it's a con game.
If it makes you feel any better, I have rampant ADHD, and I'm really brutally honest.
I like that. But with Poison Arrow, it's the first thing we recorded with Trevor. Yeah, it was almost the audition. We'd had the hit with Tears Not Enough. We all get together, but immediately, this was a totally different experience from the experience we'd had in the demo studio. Or I was going to say, there's a lot of guys that can get you in tune and in time, and tell you you're great, but you have to kind of go for that X factor when you're making a piece of music. And Trevor always used to say this. He said, if you want a clarinet on there or a tuba, we go and get a guy in to play tuba, because you've got to remember. And he used to say, people might be listening to your record in 20 years time. It lasts forever. That was something that he kind of really felt strongly about, and that's what it wasn't a curse. We weren't cursory either. There's a lot at stake for us. We wanted our record to be something special.
Yeah.
So that worked out really well for us. Yeah, that sort of desire to go. Our egos weren't going to say it was just going to be us in a barn playing 60 versions of the song. We pick one. No, we were going to bring in specialists to kind of build the foundations, to put the windows in, put the roof in on our house. Yeah, and that was definitely the philosophy of the record. And you hear that we didn't want to sound just like the Human League or the other bands that we'd left behind in Sheffield. We wanted to do something very different.
And you must have then.
Poison Arrow does encapsulate that.
Yeah.
Karen Clayton was the receptionist, and we were adamant that we didn't want any guitar solos. Mark White's a great guitarist, but we were kind of, in our manifesto it said no leather trousers, no guitar solos. It's the 80s. It's 1984 in a few years' time, and it's the modern world. So everything had to be modern, and postmodern.
I was going to ask you this about your manifesto.
We'd often find ourselves scratching our heads going, what should we do in the middle eight? So that's why it goes, da, 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 da. I thought you loved me, but it seems you didn't care, which is kind of from a Douglas Sirk or a Powell and Pressburger movie.
Yes.
And then Karen on reception, she was leaving at Friday about 5 o'clock and said, come here. I think she was Gary Langen's girlfriend at the time. And I said, have you got 10 minutes? So she goes, I care enough to know I can never love you. And then, got on the tube and went home. It was great.
And you had your theatrical moment
and that
there.
was it. It was done forever. Yeah, that's it.
So let me just track back to say, what was your manifesto? What was your
Vice Versa had a lot of manifestos. If you go back, and released records on Neutron Records, and John Peel would play them. And
yes.
But by the time we got to ABC, the manifesto was we're through with Matt and into gloss. Everything had to be Dayglow. We were trying to grab black and white Britain into the sunshine, like a lot of bands. We were trying to make, it was like that art, let's dance kind of idea that was around. It was in the kind of in the atmosphere.
Yeah,
you wanted people to listen to your music all over the world. It was a bit like a Benetton advert of bright colours, I suppose. It was a simple manifesto, but of course, in Birmingham there was Duran Duran, there was Spandau Ballet, there was Depeche Mode, there was all these other bands all around the country, Haircut 100, thinking similar things. We weren't going to be shoegazers. We wanted to entertain the people.
Yeah.
And that's definitely the prevalent mood of what happened in pop music, over the next few years.
Yeah, but it's interesting. You've just cited all those bands, and I'm thinking again dispassionately, and you were more Technicolor than all of those bands, and I love all of them.
We were unapologetically Technicolor. Yeah, that's why I had a gold suit. I had a gold lame.
A gold lame suit, of course. Well, let's press on.
I lent it to Elton John for Glastonbury, by the way. Yeah. I was pleased to see Elton in his gold lame. It's a great tradition.
Brilliant.
The Poison Arrow, yeah. And also we wanted songs that were really emotional and were like mini operas that would build to a climax. So
right.
There are many more tracks on this album. I'll shut up.
Right, yeah. So, Many Happy Returns. These are the letters I should have burned. What a line that is. What a line. That's such a strong line.
Well, when you split up with someone, do you keep the letters? Well, people communicated by letters back then. It was pre-text, pre-email. I also remember Trevor edited a section in of Anne did an incredible solo on electric piano, and that we kind of developed the end of the song.
At the end?
Yeah.
I thought,
we kind of built it out, and then,
I was going to ask you about that, like that jazzy bit at the end. Yeah. Was it like a clavinova or something? What's the name of that thing?
Piano.
It's a great sound.
We had a Selena string machine. We had the Fairlight. We probably would have been something like that. We put a clavinet in.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because then you couldn't find sounds on your phone. You had to kind of bring, a man with a removals van would arrive with a piano. There's some equipment in Psalm East, but it's a small studio, very small, much smaller than Psalm West studios.
Well, you needed some room just for the Fairlight. I remember that was like a coffin. The main bit of that was like an actual coffin.
Trevor used to send JJ out to. He'd say, "He's brilliant." Trevor used to refer to production as knitting fog later when he was working with Malcolm McLaren. But he just used to say, "Yeah, right. I want the sound of the Thames. I want you to go now. Go and get a microphone, and we'll have that, and we'll sample it." So I think there's some Thames water on the middle of Poison Arrow. But on Many Happy Returns, what was I doing there? I mean, I suppose I was hoping everybody would play it on their birthday. It's a kind of very simple idea, Many Happy Returns, but it's also complex at the same time. It's about when you split with somebody, how much you want to get back with them, and how foolish that would be.
Yes.
There's a lot of things going on in that song.
Yeah. We come to. I'm so sorry. We could probably just spend an hour just talking about that song.
I'll keep it brief.
So let's just press on. So Tears Are Not Enough reminded me how bonkers, because at that time I was devouring on a weekly basis Enemy Sounds, Enemy Sounds, Melody Maker, and they all went bonkers over you.
I don't know why we were so disgruntled, as I say, and we're like we've got to get in the top 10, we've got to get in the top 5. I remember Elvis Costello reviewed it, and I love Costello. He's one of the world's finest lyricists, and he said these lyrics are great. He's kind of like, I love this song. So we had the hit, and then when it came to putting it on the album, we kind of put it on steroids a bit. We tweaked it, we remixed it a bit. I don't know if anyone has the time to listen to the 7-inch and then the the album version. And I remember Trevor came in and he said, I've got a great idea. We can have a Louis XIV harpsichord solo in the middle, and there is on the album version. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, it's a great sound again.
Yeah, we added that and we polished up a few bits and pieces. But yeah, Tears Not Enough, I'll always love it because it was our first hit record.
It must have been quite a feeling, and you might even remember when this happened. And it's just occurred to me, the vision of this. You get into a pub and you go to a jukebox and you see your record next to like the Chiffons or next to a Stax or a Motown record. Man. That must have made your heart swell.
That's phenomenal. I mean, jukeboxes, yeah, because the classics are on there in a public place. But I always remember walking down the street near where I lived in Sheffield, and it was I guess it was snowing. And I looked up and I could see, I'm walking out along the street, but I can see an open window and they're having a party and they've got the Look of Love on in the party and they're all dancing around. And I just stood outside and kind of thought, yeah, that's cool. You know what I mean?
Amazing.
And then walked home, you know.
That's so cool.
I didn't gate crash the party.
So we come, yeah, that would have been tempting. That would have been amazing, actually. Can't imagine.
No.
So we come to track 7 and Date Stamp. That crystalline guitar at the top sounds kind of different from everything else. In fact, the whole of this song, the backing vocals are so 80s, and it's so classy, like you say. It's so gloss.
On that, Mark White spent a long time, just getting that. Well, if you remember, back in the 80s, early 80s, a Lexicon and harmonizers and echo units were just kind of coming in.
Yes.
The outboard gear you'd use.
Yes.
It was revolutionary to be able to kind of,
process.
Throw music around, process music with reverb, basic reverb and different echo effects. So that came from that. And by having a female voice on there, I think we were definitely aspiring to be Dollar. Yeah. On Date Stamp. Yeah.
Wow.
It's a kind of duet.
Yeah.
Is Monsieur a connoisseur or just short-changed? I gave the best lines of the song to the girl I duet with.
That's very generous.
But yeah. Well, Date Stamp's all about being. Life is temporary, I guess, But it's ironic that people are listening to that song, 40 years later. It kind of goes against the sentiment of the song.
So we come to track 8 and the incredibly classy All of My Heart. The album just keeps on giving. It's another classic. Like I say, more than your fair share of those incredible ideas that are in the ether. It's almost like there's almost a pressure that you're building up, but you're almost setting yourself up for a fall. Because when you make a debut album that's that good, where do you go after that?
The sessions were like that because we do a lot of remix with the singles. With Poison Arrow, we did a jazz mix. We did elaborate remixes ourselves with Trevor, and he used to say, "You're spending a fortune on this," Fortunately, it was a hit record. With Look of Love, we did the same. We did about 4 different versions. It was the dawning of Danceteria and Mark Kamens and those DJs were playing, extended mixes in clubs. So that was a big thing for us. So with All of My Heart, actually, when we brought it out as a single, we did the overture, which is a kind of 12-minute overture of all the tracks on the Lexicon of Love, fully orchestrated, which didn't even show up on the album. Do you know what I mean? It came out after the album. So we spent a lot of time and effort, doing things that people perhaps didn't hear. And Trevor used to say, "Why are you doing that?" But in a way, I'm glad we did. Yeah, I mean, we use the overture live when we play our orchestral shows now.
Yes.
With All of My Heart, it was started off as a bit of a whimsical country and western song in a way. I say that because once upon a time when we were friends, I gave you my heart, the story ends. And then David Palmer played this beautiful kit piece, and his hi-hat, by then David, he was like a child prodigy. He was kind of like about 14 when he went into the working men's clubs playing for John O'Hara's Playboys, with his school satchel. There's this guy who'd been playing drums constantly for like 5 years, who was kind of world class, But his hi-hats are there, and the song All of My Heart just grew and grew and grew. And then Anne she put her hand up and said she'd put some string arrangements together for the Look of Love, I think, and perhaps Date Stamp. But then we did a second session on All of My Heart, and that's where the orchestral passages come from. The flourishes. I mean, it's a beautiful arrangement, isn't it?
Incredible.
And very, very mature arrangement for somebody who's just starting out in that profession.
Yeah.
Anne Dudley has gone on to score, many film soundtracks.
Yeah.
Netflix series, seasons.
Yeah, there
she
you
was
go.
in The Art of Noise. But so the stars were aligned when we made All of My Heart.
Yeah.
And to make it more dramatic, we edited in tape. So it goes, remembering, surrendering, remembering that part. All of my heart. The space. We spent a long time getting the space right.
Sometimes it's just about the silence, isn't it? Gosh, yeah.
Anyway,
the stars align to make something really, I'm going to use the word timeless.
Trevor always said, She's Gone had strings on it, and I loved Just My Imagination and Bridge Over Troubled Water. And I said to him, I don't want to go schmaltzy on it. We don't want to kind of swamp it with orchestration. We'll just kind of be invisible. But he got the balance right on that one.
Yeah, absolutely.
That took time and effort.
So track 9, Forever Together. There's another thing you were ahead of the curve on, and it's only a little thing, using numbers for words, because Prince did it too. You did it before Prince, Martin.
Yeah, somebody told me, I met Jimmy Jam years later, who was in the Time, we were talking to him about making a record with him once. But he said Prince really, he bought a lot of English bands, and you can see his development, controversy, and into Purple Rain. He was kind of clued into a lot of stuff. So I don't know if he was into the Lexicon of Love.
I
saw him in the lobby of the Sunset Marquee once, and I'd seen the Prince's show. I didn't dare go up to Prince and say, he was with Wendy and Lisa. I wasn't going to say, hello, Prince,
Oh, man, you know what?
I wish I had.
If you'd done it, I bet you would have had the shock of your life. And I bet he would have gone, oh, my God, you're Martin Fry.
When I listened to
love you.
Christopher Tracy's Parade, was it Parade or...
Christopher Tracy's Parade,
Under a Cherry Moon, it was kind of a bit kind of European romantic.
Yeah, totally.
But, the Forever Together came from I think, I've not got a patent on it, so maybe he did get into that. But I saw it on a lift in Hyde Park Flats, I used to live on the 9th floor, and somebody had graffitied "Forever Together, 4 years to come, for love too strong, for us to part." And it was just this bit of poetry in the middle of this sort of, if I worked for the BBC, I would say an urban landscape. But I mean, people used to pee in the lift. You know what I mean? It was like a right old dump, and just to see this beautiful poetry there. So that's why I nicked it from. Yeah. So
wow.
If Prince started the Forever Togethers.
What a shame we can't ask him.
He didn't steal it from me. He stole it from the guy that did the graffiti.
Oh, man. Well, what a shame we can't ask him. So, The Look of Love. We skip past parts 2 and 3 of The Look of Love and get to part 4, a reprise.
Yeah. I mean, how cheeky and arrogant was that? Thinking, the record hadn't come out and we had parts 1, 2, and 3 and 4. It was kind of an opus.
Yeah.
But I think that's how we carried ourselves then. That's how you had to be. You had to say, here we are, Yeah,
it was.
That's what every artist does, really. Every performer does that.
Well, I mean,
the Rolling Stones, they're not just a rock and roll band, they're the greatest rock and roll band in the world.
But there's confidence, and then there's Martin Fry of ABC in 1981. We have
to carry it off, with bravura. Well, there was a funny moment. We used to sit in every pub in Sheffield, as I say, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, our badges are going to be like this, we're going to take the pop world by storm. And then you get your record deal and you realise you're going to have to do it. You've got to kind of follow through. It's different from talking to other bands in the George IV pub in Sheffield. You have to walk it and talk it. You have to talk it and then you walk it.
Yes. And that's funny that you mentioned the upright Joanna.
So there's a lot of that going on with The Look of Love, definitely.
Yeah. But I'm gonna pick out the George IV pub because
we played there
it's almost as if you've ended the album there with an upright Joanna, rather than a Steinway or a Beckstein or a Bosendorfer or whatever it is. You've got all of this gloss suddenly with this beautiful reprise that gives you so much space. Theme from Mantrap. Was this an early arrangement or something?
The theme from Mantrap.
Yeah, theme from Mantrap.
Yeah, was like a stripped from the orchestral session. Theme from Mantrap. To be honest, the sessions for the Lexicon of Love. I mean, I'm talking now 40 years later, and I've made a lot of records, but they were so much fun. Stuff was happening every 15 minutes. Trevor was brilliant. Gary's there, superb. Mark, Stephen, Dave Palmer. It was a great experience. So I didn't really want to go home. I didn't want to go back to the Columbia Hotel. So
gosh.
Anne Dudley's playing piano, and I just start vamping around the lyrics to Poison Arrow to the theme from Mantrap, and that's where the film noir. I spent the thing that took longest to record on that was a match at the beginning, because I wanted it to be like a match,
have that real scrape, yeah.
And then the sort of heartthrob crooner starts up with the pianist, you know.
Yeah,
and that's what theme from Mantrap is.
Yeah, and
anyway.
but it really struck me that he sounded like an upright Joanna.
Yeah,
rather than
very much so. It was whatever we could find in the studio. Yeah,
I love that. And then it ends actually like a Bond film. After the glorious key change, the big key change near the end, and then suddenly at the end you've got that you go to that minor that sounds like the end of a Bond.
We
film.
Obviously, clearly, you look at the sleeve to the Lexicon of Love. I want it to be James Bond, yeah. Of course, or at least make do the soundtrack. But View to a Kill was fantastic. Duran Duran got that gig.
Yeah. Oh gosh, what a shame you never got a James Bond theme.
No, it was to be. We could have done The Saint, Roger Moore.
Oh my gosh, yes.
That would have been good.
Yeah.
No regrets. Years later, David Arnold was making a record and he let me sing Thunderball. That was fantastic. Yeah. And there were big shoes to fill because Tom Jones did a brilliant job singing Thunderball.
Yeah. So just tell me how you feel about it now. Like I had Kevin Rowland.
Yeah,
in
no,
here,
Kevin.
And he's such a lovely guy.
Kevin
We got on really well.
Top guy.
And of course, with retrospect, he didn't like his greatest record.
I know.
So, with those spectacles on...
I think he likes it now.
Well, now he's changed it.
Yeah, I'm going to go and see the show.
So how do you feel about yours now?
With the Lexicon of Love, it's a great calling card. In 2023, I get to stand on a stage. I will do this weekend. I'm going to go to Ireland and play a festival, and there'll be 50,000 people there singing the Yippee-Yi-Yi and the From the Look of Love back at me. And, it was such a brilliant entrance. It was hard repeating that success. But with Beauty Stab, we went at a tangent. We had a lot of success in America. Our most successful record is How to Be a Zillionaire. We made, many different moves with Alphabet City, with Up, through to the present day. But the Lexicon of Love, every band should have a Poison Arrow, a Look of Love, and All of My Heart to play in their set. Yeah, no, absolutely no regrets. And I've never been really somebody that says, I've suffered for my art, now it's your turn. I know how to work a big crowd. I've learnt that.
Yeah.
And to have those songs in the canon, in the catalogue, in the repertoire, are phenomenal. But I never forget all the people that collaborated on those records. When you see me in the spotlight, it wasn't just me and my ego making those records. And all the guys we spoke about today. Also, music is a product of the times, it's just the zeitgeist. To have captured that's the important thing.
Yeah, and you really did.
There's the time and the place, the stars do have to be aligned. And, I'm going to make more records as an elder statesman of pop.
Yeah.
But... absolute affection for that period. But as soon as I remember saying to Trevor, I think we need more songs. I'm a bit of a perfectionist, and he was right, and I was wrong. But also, as soon as because I knew as soon as those master tapes left our possession, they become public property. That's true. That's the responsibility of every artist. You can't go back and kind of change it. Well, maybe some try, but it's kind of the music becomes public property, and it was brilliant giving that to the world. Really, that album.
Well, the three songs
Anyway.
the three songs, my last, my
I never
goodbye,
tire of performing them. I have to say, in different ways.
Well, you're right. Every band should, in an ideal world, have those three songs in their canon.
Yeah.
But here's the thing: they would have those three songs in their whole career, and they'd be lucky to get them in their whole career. You had them on one album, Martin. One album.
Yeah. It was the 1980s, though. It was a brand new age. You had to. Look, Michael Jackson. He in his white glove, he laid the the blueprint down with Off the Wall. And Quincy Jones with Thriller. That's where Madonna came from, and that's where Prince came from. Later. Springsteen. That idea that you had to make something, just give it your best shot. Yeah.
Well, let me what is it, 41 years
It is
too
41,
late? Is it
yeah.
41 years too late? Offer you my sincerest congratulations.
Thank you very much.